Hello everyone and welcome to Blue Tengu's live game development show where we show everything that goes into making a game from concept to completion. If you've ever wanted to make a game, we hope this will help lower the barrier to entry, maybe give you the nudge you needed to try it yourself. Even if you don't want to make a game, we hope this will give you some entertainment value. And all of the information about where you can find us is in the Twitch info down below, or in our YouTube profile for those of you catching us later. But just in case, we're at www.bluetengu.com. Tengu on Twitter, facebook.com Blue Tengu Studio, youtube.com Blue Tengu Studio for those of you watching the live stream, and Twitch TV Blue Tengu for those of you watching us on YouTube and if you want to catch us later live. If you missed any of the episodes in the past, you can always catch them over at YouTube, but you shouldn't have any trouble following along even if you haven't seen them. For those of you who haven't seen the show on Twitch or YouTube before, my name's Eric. I'm a game designer living in Japan who's trying to show you everything that goes into making a game for 2 hours a week, including all the ums and ahs and awkward debugging moments. And today, if you can't tell, I do have the remnants of a cold, so if I sound nasal or if my throat or my voice gives out, that's why. I'll try to be better about drinking the water this episode to make sure that my voice doesn't give out. But the reason I'm showing everything as opposed to making the game first and scripting out a rehearsed tutorial is because I do want to lower that barrier people feel about making a game, and I hope inspire you to go out and try it yourself if you haven't already. Thank you to everyone who dropped by last week. It was a great episode. And to all those of you who watched the video later on YouTube. For those of you here with me on Twitch, feel free to drop suggestions or ask questions at any time. I may not be able to answer them right away because I am working, but I'll try to get to them. And if I can't, please send me a private message here or leave a comment on our site or YouTube video, and I'll do my best to address it next time. If any of you are out there making something and you don't mind showing it off, send me a link to your stuff. I would like to see it, because I do try everything that I can. At this time every week, for 2 hours, I come on to Twitch TV to work on the game Project Spaghetti, top-down 2D cowboy shooter, named that because of Spaghetti Western, as someone pointed out last week. But the game has bullets fired, and they bounce around the screen with a pinball mechanic. And last week I had a great group to keep me company while I drew up the rough sprites for the scorpions, cacti, and bones that make up the new desert level. And though I did get everything into GameMaker, which is the program I use to make the game, I haven't yet started to differentiate the desert level from the previous two, which is the town level and the graveyard level. The two main things that'll make the desert levels different from the other ones are, well, the enemy, the scorpions, which I hope will be able to reflect bullets unless they're hit from behind, and the cacti bumpers, which will fire out dangerous spines every time they get hit, as a promise to Steve the Cactus. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to my task list on Trello.com here. So let me do that. Get to my desktop. And Trello.com is where I keep my to-do list. It's public, so you can come over anytime you want. If you just look up Trello and Project Spaghetti, it'll probably be the first hit unless someone else has a strange combination of keywords that matches that. But I did make a post on the site about this, but originally I just had these two tasks. I kept them vague on purpose because I didn't need to think about the details until now. So I just had, bumpers, which are the pinball type bumpers in the game, and cactus system, and scorpion, the enemy gameplay parameters. That's basically all I had defined for those tasks. But I did break them out. Like, for example, bumpers cactus system got broken out into, well, I have to make the bullet thing that it fires out, have to make it where a hit sends spines out in preset directions, had to make it so that repeated hits charge up the cactus, and have to have the cactus cooling over time. So broke that task out into these little ones here. And also for Scorpion, one task will be to have the Scorpion always facing the player, at least trying to, so that it makes it harder to kill it. Also, have the Scorpion stop when hit by bullets, so there is at least something the player can do if a cactus is charging them. Also, the main Scorpion gameplay, when hit in the back it dies, but if it's hit anywhere else it reflects the bullet. And the last thing is the Scorpion's attack will be kind of like the Bad Cowboy's shooting mechanic. If it locates the player and it has a clean shot, it'll charge the player because it's a melee fighter. But since I did break these tasks down into smaller ones, I'm going to archive them to get rid of them, because I don't need them anymore. I just wanted to keep them around to show you how I broke those tasks down. But the first thing is to just make this cactus bullet, and that won't take long at all. Just have to go over to Photoshop and basically modify one of the bullets. So let's see, objects, hopefully it's in here. Yep, bullet. Okay. So I should add bullet cactus. And I do need to bring my Commodore 64 palette in here, because I'm restricting myself to the old Commodore 64 colors. And for this bullet, where is it? Where did my palette go? I probably want to make it look different from other bullets to distinguish it so that it doesn't look too similar, because otherwise players will be expecting it to bounce, and I don't want to make the game too crazy by having like these cactus spines bouncing all over the place. So let's save that out. Cactus. And let's fire up Game Maker. For those of you who haven't seen any past episodes or don't know what Game Maker is, it's basically a development studio. Like Unity or Construct or any of those other ones. It just basically gives you the tools you need to easily make a game without having to code everything yourself. It's mainly geared for 2D games. It can do 3D games, but it's mainly geared for 2D games, so it's a little different from obviously something like Unity or Unreal Engine. Definitely a different type of game you make in this. Let me actually show you where we are now in the game so that you can get an idea for the kind of game it is and what we're going to be doing in it. Bring that up. So as you can see, you're basically a cowboy walking around here, and every time you shoot, you fire out a bullet. If the enemy ducks or it bounces enough times, it charges up, gets faster, and it's worth more points if it hits an enemy. Yeah, so that's the pinball mechanic. And hopefully I survive to show you the next level. Doesn't look like I will. Oof, scraped on that one. Okay, that was the town level, the very basic level where you're just fighting bad cowboys. This is the graveyard level where you're fighting ghosts. You can't hit them unless you ring this bell. So that's kind of what makes this special. And I'm almost out of ammo, so I should grab some. And this is the desert level that we're working on now. I've just got the bumpers in there and the scorpions move and kind of go around the screen and stuff. But that's about all they do. So I need to update this. Like right now, for example, if I hit a cactus with a bullet, it just bounces. Like any other bumper, but I want to change that first. So, first up is to bring that new cactus bullet into the game. And it looks very, very tiny, but that's because I'm scaling everything up from the original Commodore resolution. Well, at least something close to the original Commodore resolution. Let's see. Collision checking should be fine, and I just need to make the origin in the center of this object. So I think that's what I'm doing with the other bullets. Just want to make sure I'm doing the same thing. So cactus bullet, and I am going to need to define a different object for this because it's not going to behave exactly like a regular bullet, because it doesn't bounce. I will make the bullet its parent, so that it, at least for now, it behaves mostly the same. I just don't want it to bounce, which means I will change some of this stuff. Also, it's not going to power up if people dodge either, so can get rid of that. So instead of, the player being able to, duck it or whatever, actually, whoops, I do need that stuff, don't I? I need part of it. Let me bring some of that over. I don't want to power it up if the player's dodging, but I do want to not kill the player if the player's dodging. So I did need some of that stuff. Sound effects, I can keep the whoosh sound effect as they're dodging. I just don't want any of this stuff. None of the powering up. And same with the enemy. I just don't want the powering up stuff. It shouldn't actually be on a level with a ghost, but just in case it is, I suppose I should get rid of this and just keep it around. If the enemy is blocking, then bounce, that's fine. Don't need to change the number of bounces. Actually, if it hits a scorpion from the side, then I probably just want it to destroy the bullet. Don't want it to bounce, I just want it to get destroyed. So let's replace all these. And same here. Just go away if it hits the side of the screen. And there aren't going to be any more power-up effects, so I don't need that. I do need to destroy it if the room ends. And I don't need any of this stuff, but I do need to keep it empty because otherwise it'll inherit from the parent, which means it'll basically do everything I deleted anyway. And I don't need an alarm either. So I just have to keep that empty so it doesn't inherit. And let's see, I don't need to create smoke when the thing is fired out. Base speed is fine. Current speed, I may, when the cactus powers up or something, I may adjust the speed, so I'll keep the current speed variable. I don't need a bounce variable. BL score multiplier can stay at just 1, that's fine. Pick the bullet outline that stands out in the room. I probably don't need to do that. And old multiplier to 1. Well, just in case I do use it, I guess. Well, that's weird. Unknown action. What is this? BL multiplier. It's the first time I've ever seen that. I'll just try to delete it and hope it works. And I want to call this Cactus Bullet. It inherits from bullet, it's visible. And the graphic is going to be that Cactus Bullet that we put in there. So going over to the task list, that's that. Now let's see, if a bullet hits the cactus, it has to send these things out in preset directions, so that's next. Let's see. So I've got that. I just need to have the cactus, when it's hit by a bullet, do something more than this. Right now all it does is play a sound effect and does this barrel spray thing, which is fine, except I do need this. The bumper is going to be the first bumper, I guess, to have its own variable, so... Well, no, I did it with the bell, so... Set cactus level to 1 as default. And if cactus level is, let's just say, equal to 1. So the very basic one should probably just shoot out spines in the up, down, and left, right directions. So that'll kind of emulate the shooting code for enemies. So SCR fire shot is the script I want to look at. Basically this bit is what I need. Just so I remember exactly what this is, I should say cactus bullet in instance. Okay, so this is the one that spawns it left and up, but I don't want to do that. I want to start with just the left one and spawn a cactus bullet there. So this should spawn a bullet left of the cactus and send it off in the left direction. The easiest one to do will be right from there, because I just have to change the minus signs. Up. And this one's going to be B speed. And down. And one thing about these bullet offsets is that they're designed for the cowboy sprites, and I think the cactus object is a little bigger than the enemies, so this may spawn bullets inside of the cactus. I'll check it out when I get into the game, I guess. Now, theoretically, that should be enough to actually have it spitting things out in 4 directions. I need to make that positive. So I guess we'll see what happens. Hopefully I don't get an error right off the bat. And I'm just going to skip ahead levels using my F4 key here. Alright, let's see what happens when I hit the cactus. Well, that happened. Ah, interesting. Interesting. Well, okay. Silly. Makes sense. It wasn't even responding to the bullet hitting it, I don't think, so. But that actually inspires me to a different idea, which is to have the cactus shoot out a steady stream of bullets as long as it's powered up by bullets. That's actually an interesting, interesting possibility. Well, let's set it to false first. So this variable is just going to be whether the cactus is hit or not, and by default it has not been hit. And I'll just indent this stuff really quick, because I do like to have my stuff indented properly so it makes it easier to read later. And it helps me avoid things like that, like forgetting the final curly brace. And one thing I'm going to need to do is if the cactus does get hit, I need to set an alarm. Let's see, cactus cooldown times turn speed. Sounds like a drink you'd find in a supermarket. Cactus cooldown. A nice bottle of cactus cooldown. Alright, so let's see. I have to define this global variable. Or constant, I should say. Very different from a global variable because it's not changeable. And let's see. Let's try 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Let's try 3 seconds for now. And let's see. Let's change this to fire, actually. And let's go with the same principles that we were using for the bad cowboys, which is whether they're ready to shoot or not. So actually, if the cactus is ready to shoot, then shoot. Okay. And actually, this cooldown alarm is going to have to be reset every time it gets hit so that it doesn't just cool down even though it's being hit. Okay. So only if the cactus is able to fire can it shoot. So I need a separate alarm for that, actually. I'll make it the same for now, just to see. Those are two different variables, but yeah. Now let's do it properly. Shoot delay. Cactus fire delay. Let's make that 3 as well. And let's make cooldown 5 just so we can tell there's a difference. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is, if the cactus is not firing, come in here and say the cactus is firing, and say that the cactus needs to cool down before it can fire again. So let's do alarm 1 first, because that's easy. Because all I have to do in this one is, when the alarm is set off, is say that the cactus is able to fire again. Easy enough. And the other alarm is actually pretty easy as well, because all I have to do in this one is make cactus level -1. If the cactus level is greater than 0, because I don't want to drop below 0. Okay, spread. Okay, so cactus level, every time it gets hit, it gets higher and higher level. So just to test that its levels are going up, for now, I'll just do greater than 1. And this makes it fire off in diagonal directions, let's say. So up left is going to be minus minus, local bullet, y offset. Upright is going to be positive there, positive there. Down left is going to be a positive y, because it's going down, which is a higher number. And the last one's going to have everything positive, because it's moving to the right and it's moving down. Okay. Let's see what this does. Theoretically, if I hit it once, it should fire off bullets in 4 directions. If I hit it again, it probably won't fire anything off, and then if I hit it a 3rd time, it'll probably fire off in diagonals. Or it won't do anything. Let's see what's going on here. Cactus fire is set to true when a bullet hits it. Oh, whoops. Yeah, well, that's the first problem. I think I changed that twice. Okay, let's do that again. You can tell this is live, and I have not scripted anything out. There we go. Yeah. So it's working, except one thing I need to do is set the cactus level to 0 when it starts out. Because in here, the first thing I do is upgrade the level, so. So the last thing I need to do to test this is to make sure that cooldown is working, because everything else seems to be working all right. So to do that, alright, it's currently level 2, but this bullet should disappear at some point. The only unfortunate thing is that the cactus level is probably a really high level. So I do have another problem. this alarm that lowers the cactus level needs to be a little more complicated than this. So the thing it needs to do is to re-trigger the alarm once it comes in here, because it's only coming in here once, which means if the cactus gets up to level like 10, for example, it'll come in here, drop its anger level or whatever you call it to 9, and then that's it. So it'll just stay at 9 forever. And that's no good. So I do need to re-trigger this alarm. And in reality, I could probably just trigger this alarm from the beginning without having to worry about doing it here. And that's probably safer, actually. That's actually much, much safer to do it that way. This way, its cooldown is just completely independent of bullets. It just keeps cooling down over time. Although, do I want it? The problem is that cooldown timer does need to get reset, I guess, if it comes in here. So I should have left this one alone. So I'll leave that one in there as well, just so that it updates the timer, because otherwise you have these periods of cooldown, and if the bullet happens to hit right at the end, the level will jump up for like half a second and then jump back down, and that's not quite what we want. So in a way, I guess I don't need this. Maybe I was fine where I was. Well, I guess that's kind of fine. So I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It should fire off another horizontal bullet here because it only got hit by the bullet once. I'll take that one. Interesting. Cactus cooldown is 3 seconds. I guess I should keep this outside so that it keeps re-triggering the alarm. Or no, I don't need to, because it is triggering the alarm when it does get hit, so I'm safe on that. I guess one thing I should do is maybe throw in a debug message here. Just so that I know that this is working. I think it's plus. What is it called? Cactus level. Okay, Cactus cooled down to level 2 is the message it gave me there. Cactus cooled down to level 1. Cactus cooled down to level 0. So it should fire in the 4 directions again. Yep, okay. So the cactus is fine, it's just that cooldown might be a little too long. So let's cut that down to 3. Maybe cut the fire delay down to 1 second. And we'll leave the cactus like it is. So it does send out, you know, those spines in preset directions. I only have 2 levels right now, but it could get more complicated. Repeated hits do charge up the cactus. And the cactus does cool over time. So I do have the cactus tasks out of the way. To recharge my voice, and because it's a good little break here, before I get into the scorpion gameplay, I am going to take a quick break. But I will be right back after I've blown my nose and drunk quite a bit of water to recharge my voice. So until then, see you soon. Thank you for waiting while I took that quick break. I am back, and while I was away, I was thinking one thing about the cactus bullet is already with the regular bullet, when it reaches its highest bounce level, it flashes and then explodes at the end. Since the player would already be kind of familiar with that expression, it's probably a good idea to make the cactus bullet like that so that the player knows right off the bat that it's not going to bounce, it's going to, you know, stop wherever it hits next. So it might be a good idea to get that cactus bullet flashing, but I do want to get to the scorpion first, so what I'm going to do is make that a task for the future. Actually, cactus bullet, I guess. That won't take too long because I already have the flashing code for the regular bullet. Yeah, it's more game design than graphics because it's more just copying and pasting code. So the next thing is to have the scorpion always facing the player, but actually that should come later. Let's put that down here and start with having the scorpion just stop when hit by a bullet. Just so that the player can do something about scorpions even if it just bounces everything off. So let's see, go over to scorpion here. So when it gets hit by a bullet, right now I just have the default being that the enemy gets crunched. So if it blocks, I want to have it stop. So actually EM dodge is a good one to use for that. EM dodge 1, it might actually already be doing what I need it to do, so I'm going to move that down here and get to the bullet bouncing thing first. And the bullet bouncing is going to be similar to what I use for barrels and things like that, so that's going to be like a bumper. Okay, so I've got the bounce in here, I guess. If the enemy is blocking, then bounce. So I've already got some of this set up. So it's just whether EM block is going to be true or not. And to determine whether EM block is true, the front of the scorpion, if the bullet hits the front part of the collision, it's going to be true. If it hits the back, it's going to be false. And the only way I'm going to be able to decide that is when it has a collision event with the bullet. So, probably going to need some scripting in here. To determine these two states, EM block equals true and EM block equals false. So if other dot x, I'm going to need the direction as well. So it's going to be pretty similar to the code I used to determine like the sprite direction. In fact, I should probably just copy all of this over. And I'm not using this to determine the actual like sprite. I'm using it to determine where it's blocking. So let's see. If it's facing up, then only if the bullet came from the bottom direction would it actually cause a hit. In the case it's facing up and to the right, only if the bullet came from down and to the left. Would it be a hit. So if the bullet comes from left of the enemy and down from the enemy, and just because I like having all the brackets in there, I'll just do that. And with right, if it's facing right, the bullet has to hit it from the left. If it's facing down and to the right, the bullet has to come from above and to the left. If it's facing down, the bullet has to come from above. If it's facing down and to the left, it has to come from the top right. If it's coming from the left, the bullet has to come from the right. And the last case, if the thing is facing up and to the left, it has to come from down and to the right. Oops, actually down I think is greater. So that actually seems right, which means this might be wrong. Other has to be... If it's facing down and to the left, it has to come from the upper right. If it's facing up and to the left, it has to come from down and to the right. Down and to the left. Okay, I just have my sign switch there. That should work. And I do want a debug flag on that, because in the future I'll probably want to be able to see that stuff. So if I have the F2 key in play, then show these debug messages. I should probably do that for that Cactus message as well. Heated up to level. Okay. So let's see if the Scorpion actually blocks bullets. Bullet hits. Bullet bouncing off. Bullet blocked. Yeah, they're getting hit a little more than I expected them to. Let's see. Otherwise, less than Y. So as long as the bullet comes from below, it's kind of like coming from 180 degrees there. Yeah, the block is a little ungenerous here. The Scorpion needs to be a lot more threatening than that. Okay, well that's one problem it looks like. Because I don't need this EM dodge thing anymore, do I? I think this is part of the problem, is the fact that it's doing the same thing the bad cowboys do, which is it can only dodge once every couple of seconds. And I don't want that. I want it to always be able to block bullets, so let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that too. So only if EM block is false, go into here. And maybe set an alarm. Because when I have it blocking, it kind of closes its eyes for a few seconds, and I still want that effect. So maybe I will override alarm number 3 here. Just to say EM block is equal to false. Scorpion block time, let's just set it to half a second. So if it does get hit, reset the alarm. Well, actually, only reset the alarm if it is blocking. Scorpion block time times room speed. Okay. So now it should reset the block state if a bullet hasn't hit it in a certain amount of time, which is 0.5 seconds right now. And that should get reset every time, so if the Scorpion keeps getting hit by bullets, they'll just keep into that block state. And I want to change this to block. If it's blocking, don't move. Otherwise move. Okay, that's fine. Determining enemy direction is fine. Okay, I suspect the blocking is still going to be kind of fishy. Let's see. I know I forgot a curly brace somewhere. But I think it'll be a little bit better than what we just saw. So let's skip ahead. Turn on that debug feature. There we go. Now it's just constantly blocking. And I'm out of bullets, so I guess that's no good for me. I have to collect a few more. I can still hit it from the sides and all that, which means I have to get a little more complicated with this stuff. Because right now, a good way to do this is going to be to show it with post-it notes, probably. So right now, if the Scorpion is this and it's facing up, and the bullet comes in from the side, because this Y is in the middle here, and the bullet is lower than that, counts as a hit. But I don't want that to be the case. I want it to only be the case when it comes from this direction and hits the collision. So actually, instead of this, it probably has to be a little more precise, doesn't it? Like, not just Y, but Y, the bottom of the sprite. And unfortunately, I need to use sprite size for that, don't I? Sprite height and sprite width. Which I guess I can do. Let's try it. Let's try it. Previous. So in Game Maker, Y previous just means where its Y was in the last step, because it keeps track of that for you, which is nice. Y minus sprite height divided by 2. Just to give the player a little bit of an advantage, I should probably not just make it divide by 2. Let's just call it block factor. Factor, the most generic name for a variable possible, but let's go with 1.9. So if I have it 2, a bullet coming in at the corner, it's not going to count, but I'm sure from the player's perspective it'd be like, why did it block that? So I'm going to need to be able to adjust that as I go. One down. Precious. Yeah, okay, I'm down Golem. Let's see, minus is less than y minus sprite height divided by scorpion block factor. Hopefully I have enough curly braces to get everything I need done. And I'm going to work with these and copy paste. So this is x is less than, so x previous is less than x minus sprite width divided by that. I'll skip the diagonals for now so I can copy and paste better. Y greater than y. So this is going to be y plus that. Left. Well, let me make sure. X is going to be greater, so x is greater than x plus that. Now let's do the diagonals. So less than and greater than. The left should be fine as it is, yep. And the next diagonal is down left, so greater than, less than. So this time I just have to change this one. And the last one is both greater than. Okay. Well, hopefully this scorpion will be a little better at blocking now. If I didn't completely screw things up. Yes, I'm missing a couple of things here. Okay. Well, hopefully that fixes that. So theoretically, the scorpion should be able to block a little bit better than it was. And F2. Yeah, much, much better. I do want to make sure I can still kill the scorpion though, so let's check that. Doesn't look like I am, so that's not a good sign. Yeah, so that might be a little too severe. Let's try 1.5. Let's see if that factor actually makes a difference. Yeah, now it's never getting hit, so that's no good. So if it's up, otherwise, maybe I shouldn't be using previous. is less than y minus sprite height. So for example, if it's at 100 and the sprite height is 20, then the y would have to be less than that. Let me check some of the other directions too. This will be a little easier for me once I get bullets bouncing to test. Right now they just kind of disappear. Oh, that one did work. Yeah, that one's working fine. So when they're facing left, that's working fine. It seems to be the up-down directions that aren't working too well. And I should probably implement debug code to give me unlimited bullets to test this stuff out. Okay, so it seems to be the up-down directions that are causing problems here. Let's see. It's just the height that seems to be having the problem. And I think I know why. Probably has something to do with the collision in here. Because right now the collision box is there. Height divided by 1.5. Oh, well, I know exactly what the problem is. Lowering this number makes it even harder to kill, so I should actually be raising it. Because I'm dividing, so it's making the number bigger when I divide it by a smaller number. That's probably the only problem. So now they're probably going to be super easy to kill because I set it to 2.5. Yeah, that was the problem. So let's change that to something small. Like 2 divides it by half, but I don't want it to be exactly half because that's a little too severe. Okay, it's still blocking the front stuff fine. Let's see if I can get it from down here. Need someone going up. Yeah, let me actually implement that debug code to give the player unlimited ammo first. Let's see, because that's going to be important for testing. Not just now, but probably later on as well. Let's see. I guess I could squeeze it in here. So if debug switch 8, which is the F8 key, is turned on, give the player another bullet. And that is PL bullets. So after the player shoots and he's ready to shoot again, give him an extra bullet. And And the same thing with lives, so when they get hit, set lives to lives -1. I should just do +=1. Same with the ghost, same with the scorpion, and same with the bat. Okay. So that's that. Now I just need the code to actually register the F8 key. Keyboard press F8. Not quite what I wanted. Key press, there we go. That's the one I want. F8. Okay. And just turn the global debug switch on and off with the F8 key. Okay. So now I should have unlimited lives and ammo if I hit the F8 key, theoretically. Yeah, there we go. As you can see, I fired off the bullet, and when he was recharged, he got another bullet out of it, so now I can shoot to my heart's content. I can definitely hit the enemies from the back. It's just they don't seem to go up very long because of the way the pathing is working. Diagonal up. Yeah, the diagonal up is still a little fishy. Yeah, they keep going left and right because of the way the bumpers are laid out. Oh, there we go. Okay, so up and down is not working too well. So if other y previous is less than y minus sprite height divided by scorpion block factor, which is now 1.9, I think I have these. I think I have my y's right, but let me just check. Because if I'm doing the opposite of what I want to be doing, I'll find that out real soon. First try to just up this a little bit. I think part of the problem is that, well, whoops, the sprite height is taking into account all of that transparent like junk around the actual sprite itself. In terms of width, I think I'm using pretty much everything, but in terms of height, there's a little bit of a kind of a buffer there. And I think that's what's causing it to be a little picky when it comes to being shot from below. can still hit it from above though, so that's no good. 2.2 is probably alright. I'll think about that one as I go. Let's finish this task off by having it actually reflect the bullet first. So this is no longer, oh, this is EM block. Okay, if EM block is true, other EM block. If EM block is true, is that what I'm setting in here? If EM block is false, if it's true, then bounce the bullet. Interesting. This actually should be working already, so there's obviously a bug in here somewhere. If it runs into a scorpion, if the bullet runs into a scorpion, and the scorpion's EM block is set to true, then it should bounce. Let's just throw in a debug message to see what's going on, because it could just be the bounce that's not working. Because GameMaker's bounce, I think, is designed to work with solid objects, so it could just be that, you know, it knows the scorpion's blocking, but it doesn't know what to do with the bounce. Blocking 0. Blocking 0. Blocking 0. No, it's definitely a problem with the blocking state. EM block to false. Let me double check. Bullet bounce check. Just in case the way GameMaker does strings is something I don't expect. Okay, jumping ahead to that level, and let's see what it says. So, it's definitely going to block me here. Hit. Yeah. So it's not... Here it's fine, because EM block is obviously, the scorpion's not dying, so EM block is definitely working for the scorpion, it's just not working inside of the bullet. Interesting. Why would that be the case? Probably because this stuff is happening at the same time as it's happening for the bullet. Well, that's interesting, because I think what's happening is the collision event for both the bullet and the scorpion are firing off at the same time. So inside of the scorpion event, it's going through all this logic to set EM block to true or false. Meanwhile, for the bullet, which is already checking, you know, whether EM block is true or false, it's not reading this logic. It's kind of a step behind. Which means I need to have some sort of pause in here. It's kind of messy to do it that way. And the Arbiter 137 says, I'm an alien. Well, welcome to Earth. Hope you enjoy it. Nice to get a little liveliness in the chat going here. I do have a cold today, guys, so if I sound horrible, that's why I sound horrible. Well, more horrible than usual, anyway. Okay, so that's going to be kind of tricky. Let's see if there is a game maker function to actually wait without using alarms, because I don't really want to use an alarm for just like a frame. I guess I could if I have to. Yeah, I suspect I'm just going to have to use an alarm. Okay, yeah, let's do it that way. So if it hits a scorpion, just wait a frame and do this later. Let's make that alarm, I guess, 2. So all of this is going to go into there. And this is just going to trigger an alarm in 1 frame, basically. So I just need that little bit of a delay. Like in normal scripting, it'd just be like a wait or something, but... And... gonna need to do the same thing for the cactus bullet. Let's see how this goes. Okay, if EM block. Okay, that's just because it hasn't been set yet. Get EM block, since it's the first hit. At least the timer is working, which is good. EM block's false. Let's see. Well, that is a problem. Now, because I've split all this stuff off into the alarm, it doesn't know what other is anymore. So I'm going to have to come up with a different solution for this that doesn't involve alarms. Which I guess is good in the end, because I don't like using alarms anyway. Probably what I'm just going to have to do is bite the bullet, so to speak, on this one, and kind of have something similar to this for the bullet, where it's figuring out whether the scorpion's going to block or not. This feels like such a waste to have to do this twice. Yeah, it feels like such a waste to have to do this twice, but let's just try it and see if it works first. I won't worry about the cactus bullet for now. I guess there is the potential to do it only in here, but that's kind of a weird place to put it. Probably not a great idea to have another object modifying variables inside of this object, because then you don't know what's causing what later on down the line. Very risky. But at least this will help me figure out if this is actually the problem. And this other refers to the scorpion that it collides with. Hopefully I don't forget to change one of these others. That would really screw me up. Be so nice if there was just a wait command inside of GameMaker language. It'd make a lot of things easier. I understand why they don't do it, because it does make things easier to work with in general. I guess there is another solution that I'm just thinking of now as I'm blindly copying and pasting all these others in here. And that's that I could assign the collision with the other scorpion to some variable inside of bullet, so that if I do use an alarm, it can check that rather than relying on other. It would be a very specific object, so that's one possibility. It's still not very clean. I guess the other solution is going to be to have the scorpion determine if it's going to block a bullet before the bullet hits. That seems kind of risky. Oops, I just want global debug switch. Don't want to change that. Let's just keep these ones as are. This should be interesting. Looks like I changed everything that needed to be changed. If other EM block is equal to true. Okay, let's find out what this does. If it does bounce the bullet, then it was just a timing issue. At least it's good to know that. If it still doesn't work, then it's probably a different problem. Bullet blocked. Okay. So the timing was the problem. The reason the bullet passes through the scorpion is the thing I was mentioning before. Probably GameMaker doesn't know how to bounce a bullet off of a non-solid object. It makes sense, because if you have a solid object, you know exactly, you have all your coordinates, you have your collision, you know exactly how to bounce things. But if this thing can be moving too, what do you do with that? All that means is that I can't use the GameMaker default bounce code, which was in here. Let's see, scorpion bounce. I just can't use this thing. Well, maybe. Maybe it'll help me with this. If I do all objects, maybe it'll work. That'd be really nice if Game Maker does do that for me. Oh, awesome. Okay. Alright, I was jumping the gun on that a little bit. So Game Maker does allow you to bounce bullets off of non-solid objects, which is good. And the enemies are more or less working the way they need to be. The exact spots where the bullets are bouncing off of the enemies, because it's based on all that like transparency that's kind of around the enemy, it doesn't look very good. And as I saw there was a weird little issue where the block state probably changed partway through because the enemy shifted their direction. So there's definitely going to be bugs with this until I smash them all. But for the most part, the functionality I want is in there. You definitely do have to hit the enemies from behind, otherwise they just bounce the bullet back. It's still a little picky, but functionality-wise, it's kind of working. Just up that a little bit. So let me add those bugs in here so I remember to go back and fix them. Bug, scorpion. The bounce, the block bullet gets weird when the scorpion changes direction. That might actually be a tricky bug to fix, depending on how I go about it. So let's put that in for later. And, okay, one other thing I do have to do as well, it's not really a bug per se, but the bullets bounce coordinates, I guess is the only way I can say it. But, you know, with all this transparent space, I don't want the bullet bouncing off of just nothing. I want it to actually look like it's bouncing off the scorpion, without having to rely on precise sprite collision checking, because that'll create different problems. Just to show you what that is, up here in sprites, you can choose to do something called precise collision checking, and what that does is, you know, as the name implies, it checks the collision precisely, meaning at the sprite, if there's a pixel there, if there's a non-transparent pixel there, it treats it as collision. If it's transparent, then it's not colliding. The problem with that is when, you know, the character shifts around or moves or things like that, it just means that there's a risk that the collision that was back here can suddenly shift to here, to here, to here. You want to keep the collision, at least in this kind of game, consistent no matter where the character's facing, to avoid those kind of problems where collisions are overlapping and causing problems. But so I don't want to use precise collision, I just have to brush that up a little bit. But that is at least done. The basics of it are done. I still need to do adjustment, but the rough gameplay is done. Now it's just having the scorpion always face the player. And that's going to be kind of similar to what I do with the bad cowboys when they shoot. And I think I'm doing that in 0. So choose the shooting angle. Basically, a lot of this is going to be what I'm going to be using to get the scorpion to face the player. So instead of this script enemy direction, I'm going to be using a lot of this stuff instead. Okay. So the first thing is to use a GameMaker function called pointDirection to get the GameMaker coordinates for where the player is in relation to the scorpion object. So that's exactly the same as for the bad cowboy. And your angle. Seems a little silly to just rename these things, but calling it a shoot angle is going to kind of confuse me later on, so I better change them. And these are the 8 directions that the scorpion can face based on where the player is at the moment in relation to the scorpion. It suddenly got sunny outside. Huh. So, the room just doubled in brightness. Let's see, clean shot. Don't need to worry about shooting anymore. But I will keep this around because later on I might want to have it for when the scorpion charges the player, because it's going to be the same kind of principle that the bad cowboys use. The bad cowboys right now, if they have a clear shot to the player, they aim towards the player and they shoot. The scorpion, right now I'm just using that aim towards the player part, but in the end the scorpion will also, if they have a clear line to the player, charge the player in that direction, and that'll be very similar to what I use for the shooting stuff, so I'll just keep it commented out for now and just use this part of the code. And hopefully one other thing I do need to do is if em block is equal to false, because I don't want the scorpion changing the direction if it's supposed to be stopped and blocking. So it does give the player a chance to kind of circle around on the scorpion or whatever. So it should keep its old player angle, or its old facing angle, if it's blocking. Let's see what this does. If it works, the scorpion, just no matter how it's moving, is always going to be facing the player. If it works. Great. Okay, it does work. I only have 4 sprites for the scorpion at the moment, so they don't face diagonal directions. But they are always facing the player, which means that if the player just tries to shoot them or get around them, well, in that case, I guess it's just a debug with the blocking code, but theoretically, the player will just never be able to kill them unless it uses the bullet reflection mechanic, like that. And I probably should have the bullet exploding kill the scorpion. Probably be a good idea. And that shouldn't take too long. Just to give the player a few chances to get out of trouble. Okay, so they are always facing the player. That wasn't too bad at all. Stop when hit by a bullet. That's working. Probably want to increase that time a little bit, though. Maybe a full second of blocking. Let me just make sure their movement is stopping, too, when they get hit by a bullet. And as you can probably tell, my voice is really starting to give out on me. but I will do my best to explain what's going on. Yeah, that task looks done because the scorpion is stopping for a second every time it bounces. Yep, okay. So that's actually done. So the last thing is that thing that I commented out, which is to have the scorpion try to charge the player if they have a straight line to the player. That's going to use a combination of two things. Those levels that I have set up right now use these, what looks like pink triangles in this, are all the movement nodes where yeah, now I'm starting to really lose it thanks to the cough medicine, or cold medicine. But these are all the potential places that enemies can go. So I'd probably want to pick the one closest to the player and have the scorpion charge at a higher speed towards that node. Maybe stop for a second when it gets there and then start resuming, movement as normal. And so I don't want to have the scorpions constantly charging the player, so probably have to have a cooldown on that, just like the bad cowboys have a cooldown on how often they can shoot. So the first thing would be kind of like the ghost, actually. Let me show you the ghost. Because the way the scorpion charge is going to work is going to be kind of similar to the way ghosts act when you ring the bell. So until you ring this bell in the middle of the room, the ghosts just kind of wander around. But once you hit it, they charge the player. Or at least the node closest to the player if they can't reach the player. Which is exactly what I want the scorpion to basically be doing every once in a while, without needing to ring a bell. And so it's going to be kind of similar to this stuff. In the ghost's case, if it's angry, then it chooses to either chase the player or the node closest to the player. So I need something similar to that for the scorpion. And just to make sure these scripts look the same for debugging later, just make sure I put it in the same place. No path, it's stuck. Maybe I'll just copy all of this out. The only thing that's going to be different from the scorpion or the ghost is how I'm setting that state. What angry means is going to be different. So let's see, if EM angry, I guess I could even use the same name, because if the scorpion's angry, it should charge the player. So I can use angry and calm. Make the move node the player so that it tries to go to the player. If there's no path to the player, then pick the closest move node, that pink triangle, the closest pink node to the player. Boost up the speed, and I'll call this scorpion angry speed. Just so that I can make the scorpions different from the ghosts later if I want to. Let's see what my ghost angry speed is, 1.5. Yeah, I'll use 1.5 for now. Make it the same as those red ghosts. What is this? We are in a comparatively big loop in new wind proc. Not sure what that was. Let's see. So if it's angry, calm to false. Let's at least change out the names. Scorpion is making a beeline for the player. Set the player as the move node. Scorpion is angry. Otherwise, move as normal. So that's the same. That's up there. This is in that else. So now I just need to set angry and calm. So just to make sure those variables always exist. Usually it's not angry. Usually it's calm. And let's see. Eventually I'd probably want to get it so that the scorpions charge the player, or try to charge the player after they stop blocking. Because that seems like a good time for the scorpion to get pissed, if they're going to get pissed. So when EM block is set to false, I should probably set EM angry on. And let's see. When they reach that destination, that's when I turn the angry thing off. Maybe I should put it on a timer for now. Let's go with 4. We'll do that for now. Let's see, scorpion charge time. Make sure I actually have that. Let's have it charge for a second. Might be too long, but we'll see. And in alarm number 4, I just want to set angry back to 0. And EM calm true. Let's just see where we're at with that. I don't think I've done enough to implement it properly, but just to see if the scorpion behavior does change after it recovers from being hit by a bullet. So block, well, alright, that's no good. Blocked, and it charges. Blocked, and it charges. Blocked, and it charges, yep. 1 second is actually not enough time. Let's make it 3 seconds. And the speed's not enough either. It needs to be much, much faster. Because it's only, right now, it was the same as the red ghost, which is 1.5 times the usual speed. Kind of hard to tell that it's actually moving faster if it's just that small. There we go. Now you know it's upset. Doesn't seem to be calming down though, so I do need to fix something in that. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000. See, it's not calming down, so that's no good. Let's see here. So if EM angry is 1, EM calm is false, obviously. Okay, that's the problem. I'm just coming in and resetting this alarm every time I come in here, so that's no good. So I need an if, actually. If emcalm is false, actually, if emcalm is true, if the scorpion was previously calm, it's no longer calm, and set that alarm. And reset calm to true when the alarm triggers. That should make that scorpion give up its pursuit after 3 seconds. And just to make it easier to see what the scorpions are doing, I'm going to turn the path debug stuff on. Okay, so after it recovers, it should chase me for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3. And the only thing it's not doing is it's not updating its target to be something other than the player. So I need to do that. That's probably what I was using that emcalm stuff for in the ghost. Let me see where I'm using this. That's fine. It's nothing in there. If the bell is ringing, angry is 1. If the bell's not ringing, angry is 0. The calm thing is just the drawing state, actually, I think. No? Okay, it's just that. Where am I using emcalm in here? Must be for like bullets or something. So it's probably not that important. But I do need to do something for the scorpion to tell it stop chasing the player. The speed seems to be getting reset, so it's definitely coming into here. But it's not choosing a new node because it hasn't approached to within a certain amount of the player. So what I need to do, and I guess this is where that emcalm is coming in. So, okay, this is where I'm using it. Emcalm is false. True. Makes me wonder if there's a bug with the ghosts, because emcalm should be... Okay, I see what it is. If emcalm is true, false. Now I see exactly what I was using emcalm for. So let's see. Problems within problems. If emangry gets set to 0. If emcalm is true, if it's calm, then it's no longer calm. That's fine. Set the alarm. And probably what I don't want to be doing is this. That should make the difference. Now, hopefully after 3 seconds, the scorpion will give up its pursuit of the player, and I'll explain why if it works. So now it's pissed. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay. Well, it works. The reason that now works is because I was using the alarm to reset calm. The problem with that was inside of here, if the scorpion's no longer angry, it's only going to choose a new objective or a new thing to go towards if it meets one of these conditions. If it doesn't have a move node, if it's not calm now, anyway, after the fix, or if it's stuck. And before I was setting EM calm back to true in that alarm, so it was never triggering this, which means it was never coming down into here, and never updating that objective. So that's why that got fixed. So now the scorpions do make a beeline for the player. One problem is that the scorpions do kind of get stuck on bumpers as they chase the player. So that's going to be another bug to fix for later. That may be complicated. But that's something I can look into. So the scorpion now does charge the player. Not if the opportunity exists, but if it's upset. And it gets upset, obviously, if the player hit it. So that is going to wrap it up for this episode. I am going to show exactly what I did do, just as an overview. So last episode, which you can see over at youtube.com, Blue Tengu Studio, episode 18. This one's 19. Last episode, I basically just drew the cacti, the backgrounds, the bones, the scorpions. I just drew it, threw it into GameMaker. Didn't really do anything with it. This episode, basically, I put in the gameplay, the very rough gameplay. There's still lots of bugs and things to be hammered out. First thing was these cacti. Unlike most of the things that you can shoot bullets off in the game that just bounce the bullet, the cacti act a little differently by shooting out bullets because they're upset at being hit by one of these bullets. And they can trigger each other too, so they can cause all sorts of craziness. And I'll turn unlimited lives and bullets on so I can show you this stuff. The other thing with the cactus is that every couple of seconds if it gets hit, it sends out those spines, and depending on how many times it's been hit recently, it changes the way it shoots. If it's just been hit once in recent memory, it fires off in, the 4 cardinal directions. But if it's been hit multiple times, it fires off in those diagonal directions. So the more times the cactus gets hit, the harder it becomes to dodge that stuff. And I'll probably add even more layers to that as well. Right now the bumper arrangement in the room is not very good. All this stuff is kind of too close together for that cactus feature to really stand out much, but that's something I can fix as well. And the other thing I think most of you have been watching have a pretty good idea of what's been changed with the scorpion enemy. The scorpion enemy always faces the player while it's moving around, unless it's blocking. Oops. And if it gets hit from the front or the sides, it bounces the bullet back. If it gets hit from behind, it dies like a normal enemy, which makes the goal of it to be to get bullets behind the enemy to try and kill it. Makes it a little different from other enemies. And the last thing that we just implemented was when it recovers from bouncing a bullet, it charges the player for a few seconds. So the desert level is definitely going to be trickier than the other ones, I think, to kill all of the enemies, but that's kind of the point. It does force you to use the reflection mechanic on the bullet to kill enemies, as opposed to other enemies, like just the bad cowboys. Here, while they duck, they have a recharge time on that duck, so you can just shoot them after they finish ducking. So the scorpion provides a little bit of variation on that. And those are the tasks that I did for this episode. I drew the rough cactus bullet so that it looks different from other bullets. Did it so that the cactus sends those bullets out in different directions. And repeated hits charge up the cactus so it fires bullets out in different ways. But the cactus does cool down over time. And then I went into the scorpion stuff. If it's hit in the back, it dies, otherwise it reflects the bullet. It's always facing the player. It does stop when it gets hit by a bullet, and it charges the player for a few seconds if it's upset. Someone in the chat, Alex AMFM, asks, do you make Game Maker tutorials? No, not yet. As I did say at the start of the show, what I'm doing now is just to show you kind of what game development is like using Game Maker. So I don't really script out any rehearsed tutorials, as you can see, because I'm debugging stuff as I go. It's just basically live game development, which is the whole point of the show. One thing I am thinking about is when I am done with maybe Season 1, after I get this game done, maybe go back and make some tutorials to kind of fill in the gaps, because I think for some people this is an interesting format, and for some people I think you want tutorials. If you are curious about, how I've gotten from basically nothing in Game Maker to where I am now, all of those videos are over at youtube.com, Blue Tengu Studio, all one word. All the way from episode 1 to, 19, which is this one, will be up later this week, but you can see that progression all the way. But I'll think about making tutorials. It'll definitely be a little less stressful to have something rehearsed ahead of time and just go through the steps, because I'm kind of learning as I go now. And I think that will wrap it up for episode 19. Thank you guys for hanging in with me today, because I do have a cold, so obviously my voice is giving out. On top of the fact that in addition to getting high on my morning coffee, I'm getting low on cough medicine, which is making me drowsy at the same time. So very interesting condition to try and do this in. But unless I'm dying, I don't want to skip an episode, because I do want to keep making this game. And I want to keep the schedule regular. Taking a little bit of time to move this episode 20 thing over here. Come on. Trello's not as cooperative as I would like it to be. As the list gets bigger, it gets harder and harder to move things around. But I think for now that's going to wrap it up for the desert level. What I will do next week, I think, is, let's see, maybe clean up some tasks here. One thing I was thinking about was right now the player has lives up in the corner, but I could do kind of a ghosts and goblins thing with it, and that's have the player like lose their hat or lose some article of clothing or something when they lose health, so that the player doesn't even have to keep track of how many lives they have left. That's one possibility, but I think I do kind of want to keep trucking along with making the new levels. And the last level variety that I'm going to have is the night level. And much like last week's episode for the desert, this is just going to be drawing out the basic things I need for the level. So let's go over to episode 18. So as you can see with episode 18, what I did last week was I just drew the scorpion, drew the cacti, drew the desert level, and drew the bones, and threw them in Game Maker. And I think that's what I'm going to do next week for the nighttime level. And just to give you kind of a sneak preview of what I'm planning for the nighttime level, this time it's going to test a different aspect of the bullet mechanic. And this one's going to test more the player's ability to dodge, because my plan is to have aliens on the level, of course, because cowboys always fight aliens. Have aliens that are shielded, so that's kind of similar to the scorpion gameplay. But your bullets can't get through that shield no matter what, even if you're behind the enemy. And the other thing is that the aliens will fire out a laser. So when they fire, they'll check where you are, give it like half a second or something, check where you are again, and then fire in like a 90-degree arc. At least my plan is to have it that way. Fire in a 90-degree arc, kind of slowly tracking the player. And the goal is to duck and dodge in a way that gets those aliens to kind of hit each other, because when they hit each other with that laser, that'll drop the shield and give you the chance to shoot them. The thing is when you have multiple aliens, firing lasers like this at you, you're going to have to dodge. So the night level is going to, just like the scorpion level tested your ability to bounce bullets off of things, the night level is going to test your ability to dodge well. So each of the levels has a little bit of a different gameplay to it. And Alex AMFM says he likes this format. My codes are so messy. My code is very messy too. If I do a tutorial, I'll try to keep my code a little cleaner than I do. Like as you can see, let's get a good one. Well, that's actually well commented. That's not too bad, but it can get kind of messy. But if I do tutorials later, I'll try to clean it up a little bit. But as we go, I'm glad you like the format, by the way, because it is a little different. It's definitely can be stressful if I can't figure something out, but I think it's kind of useful for you guys to see that stress as well, because when you're working on your own game projects and all you watch are tutorials, it just kind of feels like everyone knows what they're doing. Why am I the only one that can't get this stuff? Believe me, everyone doesn't know what they're doing. They just figure it out as they go and then go back later and make tutorials so it looks like they know what they're doing, which may be something I do later. But that's going to wrap us up. So episode 20 next week will be more graphics drawing. I'll drop off the desktop. Hope you like the show. If you do like it, definitely follow us on Twitter at Tengu. You can also come over to the site, www.bluetengu.com. Post, a couple of articles here and there, and then all of the episodes and time codes and what I'm working on and stuff is all over there. If you want to catch the past episodes or this episode later when I put it up, you can go over to www.youtube.com Bluetengu Studio. You can also follow us on facebook.com Bluetengu Studio if you prefer Facebook, or Google+. I think it's just Bluetengu Studio there as well. So pick your poison. Twitter is probably the easiest way to keep track of what we're doing, because I usually announce 30 minutes before the episode starts, when I start, and then when the episode's up on YouTube. So all those announcements get done through Twitter. And I do this every week for 2 hours. Saturday morning, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Japan time, which translates to, let's see, now that daylight savings time's kicked in, I'm a little lost on the times, but before it was about 4 to 6 Pacific, 5 to 7 Mountain, 6 to 8 Central, 7 to 9 Eastern, but that may be an hour off now because of daylight savings time. If you're in the UK, it was usually going to be midnight to 2 a.m. between Friday and Saturday. If you're in Japan with me, obviously it's 8 to 10 a.m. Saturday morning. If you're in Australia, it's usually starts somewhere between 9 and 11, depending on where you live. And if you're in New Zealand, it starts around noon on Saturday. So I hope you do like the show, and I hope you do check us out live if you're watching this later on YouTube. And if you're watching this live now, I hope you check out some of those past YouTube episodes and leave comments and follow and let us know what you think. If you have any ideas, definitely send it to us. And as I said at the start of the show, if you're working on something yourself, I would love to see it. So send me a private message here on Twitch, or send me a comment or email through our website. This is Blue Tengu's live game development show, and I will see you all next time.